Hello. Okay, these are my cheap little videos, practice videos, whatever. I'm trying to do the Schneider and Shiffrin study first for you all. So remember what both these chapters are on. There are two chapters on this test. Chapter 4 is on attention. Chapter 5 is on sensory and then mostly short-term memory. So you shouldn't be looking for any answers on the test that say long-term memory or perception or anything like that, right? You should be looking for correct answers related to attention, attentional phenomena, sensory memory, and short-term memory, right? So that's what you should be looking for on this test. So in the Schneider and Shiffrin study in chapter 4, and yeah, my eye's itching, of course, as soon as I start a video. But anyway, in chapter 4, the Schneider and Shiffrin study, this is attention. Schneider and Shiffrin are trying to study, automatic and controlled or attentional processes, right? So some stuff happens automatically. Of course, that requires less available attentional capacity to do it because it happens automatically. Oh my God. Yeah. And of course, when it happens automatically, it's happening, in a parallel fashion. Everything is being processed simultaneously, right? And so reaction time is fast because you're processing everything at one time. And controlled processing, though, controlled or attentional processing, I would accept either of those terms as the correct answer, controlled and or attentional processing, right? There it happens in a serial fashion. You're looking through items one item at a time, doing one thing at a time. That is requiring controlled or attentional processing. That's taking more attentional capacity, right, to do those tasks. And so in the Schneider and Shiffrin task, right, they have a varied mapping condition in this study, a varied mapping condition and a consistent mapping condition, right? So remember, the stimuli in this study could vary in terms of the size of the memory set. How big is basically the target, how many items make up the target or the memory set. And then, of course, you have the number of distracting stimuli, right? Number of stimuli on the stimulus array that are not the target, right? So you have those distracting stimuli, or frame size is what that is called. And then, of course, it's presented for various periods of time, right? So it's presented very fast or slowly, so the whole frame is presented for a period of time. So a very period of time it was presented as well, right? Those are the three things they manipulated in this study, right? Now in the easy condition, or, well, what's called the consistent mapping condition, right? Consistent mapping condition, the target or the memory set is what it's called, is always the same. Right? On every trial, they're looking for the same memory set / target. All right? So it's always the same. That's the easy task, right? That's easy. If you're going through, dozens of trials, dozens and dozens of trials, yeah, you're always looking for exactly the same thing. That's easy. It requires less attentional capacity to do it. It's an easier task, so it becomes automatic, right? After a time, if you're looking for the same thing, it becomes automatic. You're searching in a parallel fashion through all the stimuli simultaneously. And so that is going to be the automatic condition, right? The consistent mapping condition, the easier task, more automatic. You search in a parallel fashion, right? At least that's what they expect. And of course, we know that's what they found. Then the other condition was the varied mapping condition, right? You have the consistent mapping condition, we just mentioned. Next, you have the varied mapping condition, all right? Varied mapping. Now, there in that, right, the memory set or target you looked for was different on every trial. So you're doing dozens and dozens of these trials, right? Looking for stimuli in dozens and dozens of these trials. Every trial is a different target. Every trial is a different memory set. Oh, you have to pay attention to that. You have to devote cognitive resources to it. It's controlled attentional processing that requires available attentional capacity to do. I have to search through everything on every trial in this harder task. I have to search through everything, one item at a time. Every time there's a stimulus frame is shown to me, I have to search through frickin' everything, one item at a time. I have to really freaking pay attention to this task, right? So that's attentional control processing. Of course, that's a harder task, right? So varied mapping, constantly changing the memory set / target that you're looking for. It's different on every trial, harder, requires more available attentional capacity to do. You have to pay attention to it, and you have to look through each item one at a time in a serial fashion, serial processing, right? So that was the two conditions, right, in the Schneider and Shiffrin study. And let's see, for just the results, right? When you looked at the results, really the important thing in the consistent mapping condition, and of course there's something in my eye, in the consistent mapping condition, basically you had, you varied once again, the variables they manipulated in the Schneider and Shiffrin study, right? The memory set, how big the target was they're looking for, the frame size, how many distracting stimuli were there, right, total in the frame, and then the frame time, right? Those three things influenced reaction time and well, performance, right? Performance as well. And so basically, in the consistent mapping condition, right, the memory set or number of targets they looked for, right, that you found no effect for that. Also, you found no effect, right, for frame size or total number of distracting stimuli, right? So think about that for a moment. The more items that were in the memory set, the more items that were in the target you're looking for, it didn't vary if there was one item in the memory set or 5 items in the memory set. You found no difference in reaction time there, right? So the more stimuli that are there, it didn't take them any longer. Therefore, they must have been engaging in automatic processing that involved parallel processing, right? They're searching through all the items simultaneously. If they were not doing that, if they had to look at each item individually, then their reaction time should be longer. The more items there are, the longer it should take you to do it. That would be serial processing. You do not find that, right, in the consistent mapping group, right? Also, the frame size, right? The number of distracting stimuli did not influence outcome or reaction time in the consistent mapping condition either, all right? So once again, the more distracting stimuli there were, it did not take them any longer to look through it, right? So they must have been looking through all the stimuli simultaneously in a parallel fashion. That's automatic processing, right? That's what's going on in the consistent mapping group. So you have the target or the memory set, you have the frame size. Neither of those influenced performance, right? Those were things that were manipulated by the researcher. Neither of those things influenced performance in the consistent mapping group. Only one item that influenced performance in the consistent mapping group was the frame time, right? How long it was presented. So once again, the longer the frame is presented to participants, the better they perform, which, well, yeah, if it's there for too short a period of time, you're not performing well. But that was the only thing that influenced consistent mapping condition, frame time, not memory set, nor, right, frame size. See how I got the English right? Not, nor. Just point that out. So anyway, then you got the varied mapping condition, of course, right? Varied mapping condition, well, everything was significant in the varied mapping condition, right? Varied mapping condition. This is the harder of the two tasks, right? The varied mapping condition. So the memory set changes on every trial, right? So it's always requiring the participant's attention, and so it's requiring, right, more available attentional capacity. But here you have the same thing for frame time. The longer the frame was presented to participants, the better they did. You found that in both, right, these conditions. But here in the varied mapping condition, you find that the memory set, right, and the frame size both influence performance in the varied mapping condition. All right? So memory set, that's the target. What's what they're looking for. So the more items that were in the memory set, the larger the memory set, the longer it took these participants, right, to respond, right? And so that's evidence of serial processing. You're searching through items one at a time. If there's one item to search through, you do that faster. If there's 5 items to search through, it takes you longer to do that because you're searching through them one at a time. That's evidence of serial processing, right? Doing it one at a time. The more items there are, the longer it takes you to do it. So yeah, the larger the memory set, the longer it took them to respond. Also the frame size, number of distracting stimuli, right, that were present. The more distracting stimuli that were present, the longer it took them to respond. Serial processing, right? The more items, since you're searching through them one at a time, the longer it takes you to do it. All right, and that's serial processing. And so this is what is happening in controlled or attentional processing. It takes you longer to do it. You're paying attention to one item at a time. And of course, that's what you're doing. Hopefully while you're studying, right? You're paying full attention. You're not dividing your attention. You're not paying attention to other crap. You're focusing your full attention, right, on the material, because of course that's what we said in this chapter 2 on attention, right? You have to attend to something to get it into memory. That has to happen. And you have to attend to it. There's no shortcut for that. There's no pill you can take, right, that's going to enable you to attend to something less and still learn it. Right? That does not exist. I don't think that's going to exist until we can directly input computer chips in our heads, right? Put the information in that way. But the way we were designed, we have to pay attention to the phenomena, right? We have to pay attention to it, pay attention to it, pay attention to it, pay attention to it, then it gets into memory, all right? And then you need to keep paying attention to it because you need to get good retrieval cues so you can get it out of your long-term memory when you take the test. And we'll be talking about that the next 2 chapters after this test. All right. So anyway, that's the Schneider and Shiffrin study. I hope this helps.